Watching out for you, whether working from home or living at work, whatever you want to call it, it's likely here to stay. For some, it was a way of life even before the pandemic. We caught up with some of the people who've been living in the new normal in business and schools for a 360 report this afternoon. For many, it's been a year of non-stop virtual meetings, and many employers and schools are looking at the future of remote work. But what have we learned in the last year, and what are the unofficial rules of it all? In this 360,
so you got to know everybody a little differently.
We'll hear from an employer who's used remote work during the pandemic.
It's more exhausting, yeah.
A teacher who's been teaching kids both in person and online.
It is extremely hard to be paying attention in class.
And a student navigating the world of remote learning. But first,
this just controls that. It allows.
Let's head to the office.
Everybody on my senior leadership team knows my dog well, whether they're located here or out of state.
John Hawley is the president of Davidson Technologies in Colorado Springs. And like many, his employees have become acquainted with parts of his personal life, like his dog, thanks to remote work.
He might wander in and want to provide his opinion of the subject we were discussing.
At the start of the pandemic in Colorado, they made some changes.
Actually shut down our office space for 45 days back in the April and May timeframe, and everyone had to work remotely.
This screen here was something the company happened to buy about a month before COVID made its way to the state.
So our timing was impeccable.
Hawley wasn't completely new to remote work from his time in the military, but says the company has learned a lot in the process.
The most important thing of operating remotely is maintaining connectivity with all of the employees and do it frequently.
Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. We have heard it all throughout the pandemic, from muted mics to challenging connections. But when it comes to workplace etiquette during remote work, several universities have looked into what's considered professional and what's not. And it really comes down to what your workplace needs are and the boundaries set, whether it means cameras on, cameras off, or even video calls unannounced. In the classroom, there's some unique challenges both for students and teachers.
I have senioritis right now, and then you put that with COVID and there's no hope.
Kennedy Peak is a senior at Rampart High School, and remote learning isn't exactly her preference.
Some of my grades have really dropped. And a lot of my classmates' grades have dropped.
Taking both college and high school courses as she prepares to graduate in a few months, she says learning from home is anything but ideal, and staying focused at home isn't easy.
I would say at the beginning of every semester, all teachers are like, oh, turn on your camera. I want to see your guys' beautiful faces. And people would turn on their camera and then immediately turn them off.
Turning on the camera isn't something Kennedy always minds, but sometimes teachers, they want those mics up and with distractions all around.
Here's my phone, right? I couldn't even be like this, on my phone or scrolling through TikTok, looking like I'm taking notes when I'm really not, because everyone's mics had to be on.
Kennedy says some teachers have found better ways to keep her attention, but it's not always the case.
Future reference?
For teachers like Scott BLATNICK, who teaches math at Rampart, it's an equation he, like many, wasn't prepared to solve.
Always hard to motivate kids, but I found it to be a lot harder to motivate kids.
His days for the time being are split between remote and in-person teaching, and most teachers aren't requiring kids to turn on cameras.
Hi guys. Personally, I didn't want to force kids to do that. I didn't want them to feel uncomfortable. I know I have kids at home learning. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable turning the camera on, so I kind of left it up to them.
Meaning many times BLATNICK is teaching to a screen of names, and for most students, speaking in a virtual setting isn't comfortable either. Many of them tend to type answers or questions instead.
Can understand why they don't want to always have it on, but for us, I always believe in lead by example. So I'm just leaving my camera on, hoping that sometime some kid will turn theirs on.
BLATNICK recently received a vaccine and says he's looking forward to when more students can be back in the classroom and have that learning experience once again. So let's bring it back. The world of remote work and remote learning has become a part of people's everyday lives. And for some employers, it will likely become a benefit or a way of life from here on out.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.